Slam poetry.
He doesn't care if it's perfect.
It's time to slam now.
It's the biggest poem I've got inside of me.
She was a thief. You gotta
Love
vote.
me is to love a haunted house.
Yelling, angry.
Blood-black nothingness began to spin.
Specific point of view on
To
things.
this day, I hate pork chops.
I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Welcome back, everybody, to I Think, Therefore I Slam. My name is Andrew, and this one's for the poets who didn't even realise it. Welcome to the show. I'm going to introduce my guest straight up today. So this is someone who I met at a poetry event down here on the Mornington Peninsula. So it's so interesting to me who you run into in the poetry scene and who you run into on the road of life more widely. Frankston local, up-and-coming spoken word poet and creative, Aaron Grahame. Welcome to the show, mate.
Oh, thanks for having me here.
Good to have you on. It's a beautiful spring day. I'm still raspy from my cold. I think that's carried over from last episode. Before we get started, I just do want to acknowledge that you were very bold when we met because I was plugging the podcast a bit and did a piece. And then you found me and actually asked if you could be on the show. And I was like, oh, awesome. Like, I'm always appreciative when people have that initiative. And I checked out some of your work and I was like, hell yeah, I'd love to have Aaron on. So good job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I was pretty nervous to go up. I'm like, I had no idea who you are. And I'm like, oh, he's doing a podcast. And I was like whispering over to Lisa. And then she's like, why don't you go on it? And I was like, all right, I'll take the time. And everybody's talking to you. And then slowly walked up all shy. And then I'm just like, hey, how's it going? I'm Aaron. And then you're like, oh, I loved your poem. And then I was just like, well, can I jump on your podcast? You're like, hell yeah. So here I am.
Yeah, love it, mate. And again, good on you. I feel like my whole experience in making this podcast has been just asking. Like, you never know. And asking can be like vulnerable because in a way you're letting someone know what you want and they can accept or reject it, basically.
100%.
Yeah. So my whole experience has been you just never know. So I hope that's an encouragement to someone. And good on Lisa for being there for you and saying, yeah, just giving you that little nudge or whatever. And here we are. So I like to think that I'm easy to talk to, Aaron, but I guess we'll find out over the next little bit. Let's launch into some of your poetry, mate. You've brought a couple of pieces for us. Did you want to intro your first piece at all or jump straight in?
I didn't really know if I wanted to do poetry. Like, I was just writing stories. And like, in terms of procrastinating the big chunks of writing, I started writing little chunks and that came out in poetry. And I got like heavily invested and I still write stories as well, but I think poetry is just that little victory every now and again. I just keep coming back to it. But there was a point where I was like, nah, I need to stop doing poetry. I need to do my writing. Like, I want to like get books out there. So I got this piece here. I'm sick of writing poems. They make me think. So tired of thinking, I've exhausted my thoughts of poetry. My mind should sleep, but that makes my writer brain dream. And when it awakes, it's more painful words put together, coming out on paper, with the nightmares of war written with every dab of ink. I didn't choose poetry, it chose me. Now when I stop, I fear I'll be the poet I don't want to remember. The insomniac writer who never sought to be a dreamer. I may be sick to death of poetry, but I'm yet to see it kill me.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Very nice, mate. The insomniac poet. It's a wonderful visual. You're certainly not alone. I've had people on the show who started more in that kind of fiction realm and then poetry chose them or whatever happened. They fell in love with the art form. So, yeah, I think all kinds of types of expressive writing can lead to all kinds of interesting avenues. So it's so good to see you producing this kind of work now.
Yeah, thank you.
You told me that, you started off more on the fiction path, the story writing path, and that you actually had a book out at one point. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, yes. So I started writing a book and at the time it was just a procrastination of biology. Like, during COVID, we had to study for biology. It was a little bit hard to just stay focused in front of the computer. I invited my friend over and we were meant to study biology together because I was just a little bit better and he was like flunking all his exams. So I was like, we got to get through this together, you know? And within 20 minutes of biology study, it's just like, how do you do this? And I was just like, I don't know. And it's like, let's do something else. Let's start writing a story. And we started writing a story in the perspective that the world was just becoming a zombie apocalypse. And He loved it. And we just went from there. And I think I wrote like 2,000 words. And then in the midst of studying for exams, I'm like, I'm done with this. I'm just going to start writing a story. And then I got to 5,000 words. And then I posted on Facebook that I was writing a story. And then I had my friends start reading it, and they're like, wow, this is actually really good. And like it really encouraged me to just keep writing. And then suddenly I had like 40,000 words in like the span of like 8 months. And then I wrote another one, and I just kept writing, and I was just, I don't know, working towards this. And as I told my friends, they're like, no, that sounds like it should be a book. Like, you should do it. And like, it was just everybody like pushing you to be your best. And I just saw myself being something I was chasing.
Yeah. Wow. That is so bloody wholesome. I love it. I love that it just came out of trying to get out of school, or as it were, trying to delay the old exam prep, which I know can be a big drag. Good on, your community and your friends for encouraging you in that. When you said it was a zombie apocalypse, are we talking like slow shuffling zombies or like really fast zombies?
So at the start, they're like a little bit mysterious. So they're individuals that are just on the social norms of like murderers, and like they like hide from society. And then it eventually evolved into, I seen a zombie and no one believes me. And then like he sees his friends like start like turning away from him in terms of relationships. And then suddenly everyone's zombies. And it was very raw and unrefined. And it kept going backwards and forwards. It didn't really make sense, honestly. But then towards the end, it was actually him going crazy. And the world wasn't a zombie apocalypse.
Oh, wow. What a twist.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's rather poetic.
Yeah. M. Night Shyamalan would be proud. I see dead people. But 40,000 words, like that's bloody impressive. I know that I fall in love with the idea of having like written something and having it finished, but it doesn't always happen that way. Like I don't always enjoy the actual process of writing. I want to have it done. I want to have the 40,000 words done today, but not necessarily like put in the effort. Good on you for actually rounding it out and having an ending and pulling the rug out from under everyone.
Yeah, well, hopefully it was an ending that was, I guess, my own plot twist. So, yeah.
But one of these books that you mentioned, you did end up publishing through a particular service, which I want to find out more about. What was that story about?
So that was Memoirs of Forgotten Yesterday, and it follows around Mr. Hargraves, or Harry Hargraves, and he's got Alzheimer's. He's an old man, and he dies towards like the 4th chapter, but he relives his whole life vividly in terms of memories. And as like he flashbacks, you see the character or the person he was amongst his life, and it's the more pinnacle points of his life in terms of love. So it follows like a love that he had in like teenage years, another lover he had in teenage years, the drama that was there, and then the drama that would unfold in his midlife crisis. And it takes a really dark turn, and you see like this trauma come into his child. And then it follows a second story, like within that story, of the antagonist, and his son becomes more narcissistic and manipulative, but he just wants love as well. And yeah, it takes a really dark toll on like everyone else who's around, who's a part of the story. And it's, everybody's got their own story, and it's just how some affect others like differently. And
once it was done and you made a decision to bring it out there, what was the program that you used?
Okay, so that was Ex Libris, a relatively expensive self-publishing company.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that was a tedious process, backwards and forwards. I got like a pretty expensive package. They did the front cover design. They did one round of editing, which I wish it was more than one. Okay. But obviously you have to pay for those services, and it's just, getting expensive. And then I also did marketing package, which I regretted.
Oh no.
Yeah, that I guess I wanted to sell a product that I wasn't actually 100% invested in, and that's where I went wrong.
Sure, yeah. Because it sounds like there was a fair bit of money to put down on the desk and you weren't 100% happy with the result. I've had people on here who have used all kinds of like self-publishing things. Some of those print-on-demand things through Amazon, which I think have lowered the barrier of entry a whole lot. I think when I had Jasmine on, she was warning people about like not using what they call vanity presses. So
I think that's what it was.
you reckon?
I'm convinced it's a vanity press.
No, yeah. See, there's quite a few of these out there. And to be honest, when you were telling me about it, I was like, I hope this wasn't like a vanity press thing. Like they are legitimate like services, but I think the quality is not necessarily what's promised. So sorry to hear you got stung, mate.
Yeah, that's all right.
So you ended up with like what? A couple of boxes of actual physical copies, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Do you still have a few of those or did you manage to move
I
them?
plan on burning them and like, I don't know, I like this idea of a phoenix born from the ashes. So like once I do actually get it edited again, I just like show everybody I'm burning them and everybody will be like, no, don't do that. And then I'll come back out, I'm like, look, I got a new one.
Yeah, just bathe in the smoke, have your own smoking ceremony. All those beautiful pages, Aaron. But yeah, again, I suppose if the experience wasn't super useful to you, then maybe it is appropriate to have a little bit of a book burning every now and then if it's your own book.
It's probably a crime if anyone else did it, but if I do it, it's fine.
That's right. That's right. You've got you've retained those rights, those book burning rights. Talking about burning the physical copies, you also said that you essentially like pulled it from publishing at one point. Is that right?
Yeah. So I've actually cancelled it being produced.
Yes.
Because I'm just not happy with it. Like I'm not 100% with it. I don't want to sell a part of myself that's not all of me. Like you can have someone's heart, but without their like mind and soul, like it's just a heart, you know? Yeah. So I want to be able to give it all of me, not just a random chunk that makes no sense, you know?
Wow. Yeah, I like that. And I know you were saying to me that it was quite a personal process putting the book together and you felt that while it was therapeutic, this particular story, you weren't sure whether it would actually have much appeal, like beyond what it was to you as an exercise. Is that right?
Well, yeah. Well, I guess there's a very broad audience for this particular book. Like not everyone's going to read it. Not everyone's going to have something nice to say about it. Like it's one of those books that will probably just get forgotten on the shelf. As sad as it is.
That's most books.
That's most books. It's most books. So it doesn't really hurt to, be like everybody else. Just like, we're all the same.
Yeah. We can't all be on Oprah's or Reese's book club list or whatever. I was listening to someone talk about like what it takes to get on the New York Times bestseller list. And it's not really what you think in terms of like pre-orders are very important, for example. And I think there are certain ways people can manipulate the numbers a little bit to be able to go on there. I think we've seen that in the past. So what do you think you learnt throughout that process of finalising a manuscript, getting it out there, cancelling it, maybe burning it? Like, what do you think the lessons are from this?
All right. So as cliche as it is, everybody judges a book by its cover. And
oh, damn.
It's okay. I literally bought a book yesterday and it was only because it had a nice cover. Like I look at the words and the title of the book actually was appealing as well. But I think in terms of aspects, if you look at something and go, oh, that looks really nice, I want that, obviously you're going to get it. If the cover is ugly and you just feel like it's just a normal book, unless that author has like a credited rating, you're going to judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
And I think another thing I learned is definitely don't rush the journey, you know. You think about Little Red Riding Hood and mum's like, don't go down the shortcut. And then it goes and unfolds into this drama of the wolf and the grandma and you're like, yep, shouldn't have gone down the shortcut.
Stay on the path.
Yeah, and I think that's what writers just have to do. And like now you've got AI coming into the process and it is just all these shortcuts, but there's no like real creativity anymore. And it's just, you have to strive to be even more different. And so, yeah, that's where the journey will go. That's where the journey will take you. So don't rush the process. Just, stick in there.
You've got some wisdom along the way with all this. In terms of book covers, at the end of the day, like we just like shiny things. And when I was a kid, I loved Deltora Quest because it had these bloody, lenticular covers. I was like, woo, they're all, shiny and move around. And not everyone is on bloody like Goodreads. Do you know what I mean? I love reading reviews before I buy a book because otherwise I'm just going to buy too many books. So I try and like narrow my search to various things. But not everyone's on Goodreads. Most people, arguably, it's the visual component of it all. It's seeing the name of a writer that you recognize that comes with the prestige. Again, there's all these kind of little hacks going on in the background. You said in your piece that you felt like poetry chose you. So can you tell us more about that transition or that opening up from fiction writing into poetry?
Well, I think a lot. That was the first part of the poem where I'm tired of thinking. And that's where writing, it just expands on my thoughts, gets it all on paper, and it's very therapeutic. And I know it lets you control your emotions a little bit more. You can't control everything around you, but you can control what you put on paper. So it lets you tell a story, lets you make you feel better about yourself. And so I feel like poetry chooses you because it lets you unbottle these emotions. And being a writer just means you have a lot of thoughts, and poetry means you got a lot of emotions. And I think that's really sweet. And I think being able to get it out on paper and make it poetry, that's just part of your identity, part of your emotions, part of who you are and how you feel. And there's no one to say you're wrong.
Love that. There's no one to say you're wrong. Maybe the only person saying you're wrong is that pesky inner critic inside of us. And sometimes we have to push through that as well. So you're going from the heart or the mind, your thoughts, onto the page and then onto the stage. You were telling me that you've just started sharing things in that kind of open mic environment. We ran into each other at Poetry on Fire, which is one of the newer events down here on the Mornington Peninsula. So I'd recommend people come and check it out because it's new and it's fresh and there's all kinds of people coming through the door. So what has it been like starting to share your stuff in that space?
Well, I think taking the first steps as you're walking onto the stage, everything's just left behind you. You're someone else. And then you stand up and you look at the crowd. You've got a few faces that you can look at and feel familiar about. But then you still got so many strangers and you can't get inside their head. You can't know what they're thinking. And so you just go straight into the poetry. And after you finish, you look at all their faces and now you know what they're feeling because of that piece of poetry that you got to give them.
Yeah, that's a fantastic picture, and I could see that whole steps of events playing out as you got there and shared your piece, which I really loved. I do remember, it's coming back to me now, I do remember when we did meet, I did offer, and I hope I asked you whether I could give you some advice before I gave you advice. I don't tend to give people advice unsolicited. I know that can be quite rude. I think I said to you that I loved your piece, and I was encouraging you that when you go up there to share, I know that you gave a little intro and you did give a proviso saying that, maybe you felt that the piece you were about to share was a bit more serious or dramatic or a downer or whatever the words.
I do remember that. But everybody else's, there was 8 pieces before me and there was happy, there was funny, there was neutral tones. And so I'm going up there and I'm like, I'm about to literally just change the mood of this whole room. And
yes, you are.
That's what I had to be ready for. And I was doubting. I'm like, I have another piece I could probably share to be like everybody else. And I was like, nope, I'll just apologize and do it. So that's what I did. I apologized and I thought it was good for me to be forthcoming with what I was about to share. And that was a forewarning where it could take a dark turn. And I think that's just slightly respectful to someone who probably doesn't want to hear that.
I think there's different thoughts out there about trigger warnings and whether that is appropriate or whether it's helpful. I think the jury's still a bit out. But I think in general in the poetry community, people will I've definitely seen lots of people get up and say a similar thing to what you did. I think when I spoke to you afterwards, I was just sharing with you my hope that as you continue to get more confidence in your work, that you won't be afraid to lean into your strengths and what you've got. And that I think it's really important to not set up the audience to reject what you have to say. And that can come across in all kinds of ways. I've seen people come up and for whatever reason, they'll say, oh, this piece I'm about to share, it's not very good. And when I hear that,
Okay,
I'm like,
that's different.
yeah, it is different. And when I see that, I'm like, no, what are you doing? Like, just, I know it's hard. I know it's such a vulnerable experience. And sometimes we say things like that to soften the blow of maybe the rejection that we think we're about to feel. It's a protective thing. And I really hope that people in those positions, as they get more experience, they can stand confidently and be like, yeah, I've got something cool to say. I've talked with poets who've done stuff around the world, and people in the US scene, everyone's quite like brazen and bold. They get up there and they really take up the whole space and the whole stage sometimes. So I think there is a balance. So yeah, I just hope that you continue to find that balance in what you do.
Yeah, no. Try again.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I've seen a fair bit of kind of the stuff you've been sharing online as well, Aaron, and I noticed that sometimes you combine your poetry with music as well. So you've got your keyboard set up there. Are you, what's happening in that space? Are you like, what comes first? Do you create a bit of music first or does the poetry come first?
Well, poetry takes a life of its own, so does the piano. It works both ways. I'll do pieces that I won't do without music. I'll do pieces which is only music. I think I only just started playing the piano. Like, I got it for my birthday like a month ago. Well, I stole it from my brother. He had it in his garage and I was like, can I have it? And he's like, no, I'm going to play it. And like I waited 2 weeks, he still hadn't touched it. So I'm like, I'm taking it. I'm taking it.
Thanks, bro.
It was my birthday last week. I'm taking it. And so I took it and I started playing it, just tapping around. And I was already doing poetry and I just thought to involve it. Like I thought I think music and poetry it mix well, just as singing does. I'm not a singer, so poetry and piano is.
Yeah, I even went to an event in the city a few weeks ago where they had a violinist on hand. If people wanted, they could say to them, look, I'm about to share a piece and it's quirky, so that's the theme, and then they would improvise a little bit. I didn't ask for anything when I went up, but it added like a different feel and a different dimension to the pieces people were doing. So yeah, I think it's cool when people combine different mediums. Maybe they play the handpan or something else. So yeah, so I didn't realize you'd only been playing for like a month and that it was pinched from your brother. But are you having fun? Are you a complete beginner? Are you doing like chopsticks and things like that? Yeah.
I don't know. I can feel like the rhythm. Like I'm naturally creative, so I can feel the rhythm. But yeah, I'm definitely a beginner. I'm such a beginner, like noob of noob. But that's all right, we got to learn.
And people talk about the piano as being like one of those foundational instruments where it's something very tangible where you can, you got that muscle memory in your fingers and you can see how a chord is put together, and then that leads to how chords work on other instruments kind of thing. So yeah, I think you're part of a big community there of pianists and people who are experimenting with that stuff. So I don't know, man, maybe you'll be the next Bo Burnham. We'll see.
Doubt it.
Very good. Thank you for taking us through all that. I think it's time for piece number 2, Aaron.
All right. So I was doing a mini short series of poems, and I would do them in the form of telling a story. And I called this series like a fallen angel. So this one's called The Healer. Here's a story about a fallen angel in the form of a poem. Death be her pain, she does not wilt. In life she withers, but still she does not wilt. For she is the deepest ocean and the tallest of skies, untouched by thoughts of demise. Her love of life is plentiful. A flower will rise where she walks, even in the wettest of soil. And seeds will fly, spreading rejuvenation in all that seems lost. Hope and faith make her divine. What has been done won't define that what will. The old world and the new are in sync. The present be true. Wounds heal and tears find tissues. They call her the healer, no longer bleeding and wearing her scars. But if you ask her, she will say she bears many from wars. And she'll show you her body, once trauma, now a garden cemetery filled with beauty. They call her the healer, her soul too alive for her body to die.
Wonderful. How many poems have you got in like that series?
I don't remember. Probably around 13.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, but some of them were really dark, so I thought
Sure.
that was the more positive, uplifting one that I could dash it.
Yeah, and then you've got like the fallen angels or whatever and whatever they're up to.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Do you find yourself like writing around a theme a lot like that?
Contradictions. Like, I think that's what I focus around. Like the positive, then the negative, then the positive. Like very switchy, moody, emotional. I also follow a lot of aspects in terms of love. This idea of love, what it is, how it makes us feel, the dark aspects of it, like jealousy and obsession, and I think that's what I focus on.
So kind of like people do wonderful things for love, but people also do like terrible things for love.
Yeah,
What you mean? Yeah,
100%.
Oh wow, I like that. So it's almost like the light and shade of the human experience.
Yeah,
Maybe there's nothing out there that is like 100% good or like 100% bad. It's like a very kind of yin-yang way of looking at things. I think there's a lot of kind of rich thematic material in there. So thank you again for sharing that one.
well, yeah, there's a fine line between bravery and stupidity, isn't there? So I guess that's where it lies as well.
Yeah, good. Let's keep on that thread because I really want to get into what the creative process is like for you, Aaron. So like where do you go for inspiration? You've talked about contradictions that you see in life. But yeah, how do you go about finding ideas and shaping them into what ultimately becomes these beautiful poems?
Honestly, just living life. My neighbor was screaming at these crows at like 9:30 yesterday. And
boy.
obviously wanted to sleep in. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to make a poem out of that. Like as simple as that. I think you just got to live life, tell an experience, jump into someone else's shoes, live their perspective. And that's how you get inspiration, live through other people.
Are you a fan of like people watching? Some people will deliberately put themselves in a public place and it can be quite enjoyable when you like make up stories about all the faces that are coming by.
I don't know. In terms of drama, I've lived like the worst 2 years of drama. I'm tired of drama, so I don't want to be involved with it.
Sure.
But it's funny you say that. When I was younger, people have conversations, and being kids, you just pretend to say what they're saying. And like, I have a big family, so me and my sister would like pretend what a stepdad would be saying, and it would just be the most hilarious thing.
Yeah.
Or like when someone's completely oblivious to the conversation that you're having, and they're having their own conversation, and they're like, yes, no, and you're asking the most dumbest questions, and then they're answering to them, and you're like, it's just so silly, and then you like get involved into it, and like I guess that's where I'm going with that.
Yeah, it's almost like I think when we're young, we know tone and we know body language before we know like verbal language. So we know what it's like when someone is upset or angry before we can put more words to that. And that's what we build on. There's this concept of, I don't know if this is an actual word, but sonder, S-O-N-D-E-R, which is this feeling that it's like that existential feeling you get when, I don't know, you're driving to work and you're surrounded by cars.
Oh, it's definitely a word. I know this word.
Oh,
I know,
awesome.
sonder, like it's put yourself in someone's perspective. And I wrote a poem ages ago about it, and it was these battles that other people have.
Yes.
And your respectfulness to them is, you should be sonder to it. Like that's, it comes onto the lines of empathetic.
Yeah, it does. I think for those who may not have heard it before, I think it gets at that existential feeling of being surrounded by people and suddenly having that realization that everyone is like living their own life and they're their own main character, and your perspective is only one of many, and there's so many out there. And I don't know if it's a nice feeling. It's certainly a wondrous feeling, again, when you realize how small you are. But I think feeling that sensation of sonder, can lead us to exploring the types of ideas and the types of stories that I think some of your work is touching on.
I guess, yeah.
Speaking of like contrasts, so we've just covered experiencing life and finding the parts that we can turn into our work. What kind of resistance do you face? As in, do you go long stretches of time when you're just, for whatever reason, not able to write anything, or it's not happening the way you want it to, or how loud is that inner critic of yours?
Ooh, that can range from like 2 weeks where I just have like a break. And I think that's important though. I think it's good to drop something as long as you pick it up. It's like going to the beach and you have your rubbish, you don't bury it in the sand. You can put it down, but just pick it up and put it where it belongs later. And I think that's what you got to do with writing. So when you have these mental blocks, don't like sink into your bed, have a shower, live life, do the little things that are important as well. Like get too involved in writing. There's a fine line. You still need to live life. I think, like, as I said, you're telling these experiences that you have in your poetry and your writing. Otherwise, you're only limited to the imagination that you're in. You're like, if you see in the world, you can tell the world how it could be better. So, yeah, you just have a shower. That's how you get rid of these mental blocks.
And with your beach metaphor, it's almost like, put your stuff down and then go into the ocean for a bit.
Yeah.
Swim around the ocean, feel what that's like. Your creative pursuits will be ready for you when you get back. I don't think we need to necessarily be afraid of like losing the juice or whatever. There's something to be said for when you feel like you're in flow, but if you do get to a point where it's starting to dry up, that kind of self-care and that kind of lightness of touch and not making it a taskmaster that's like that you measure your value by. Oh, I didn't do my 500 words today. Oh, I'm never going to whatever. Oh, I haven't achieved the big goal that's actually a big and long-term one.
Don't get me wrong. You still need to have routine. Like
totally.
I think routine's just what controls it. And I think that's good. You have a little bit of routine. But it's good to break routine every now and again, do something different. But, you just got to come back.
I'm really excited that you're starting to dive into that musical part of the brain, because I think that's going to be really helpful to you, because I think music is stimulating a different part of the brain. So you might turn off one part of your creativity while you let something else come on. But I can see many ways that might lead you back to generating more ideas and more kind of content out of that.
Oh, yeah. Everything's writable,
Yeah, everything's connected. Are you a big music fan at all?
Yeah, I love music. As myself playing it, no, not so much. I tried singing the other day. That was the worst. I felt so embarrassed watching my own recordings. I was like,
no one likes the sound of their own voice, mate. Like, I'll be interested to see how you go listening back to this and seeing how you go.
Oh, no, she'll be right.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So what do you think, what is next for you? Do you see yourself still continuing to develop new pieces and new ideas?
As it comes, I'm not heavily pushing towards, I'm going with what feels natural. I am pushing to write more books. Poetry is, that little victory every now and again that I will come back to. But yeah.
Nice. It's cool when, like, it would be so easy for when I asked you that to just throw out like some impossible goal. And some people like setting their sights really high and be like, one day I'm going to do this or win this or whatever. But to just say, hey, I just plan to be amongst the things that I like for as long as I can be. Because that's all you can control. You just keep showing up. You just keep doing your practice. You just keep sharing with others or whatever it is that's important to you. So I like it when people keep it simple and say, hey, I'll be here. I'll be doing stuff. And if people like it, that's just gravy. It's just icing on the cake.
I hope you're not putting gravy on your cake.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I guess some metaphors there. I'm actually not like a gravy guy. So even outside of cake, when I eat food, I want it to be...
So you're disappointed when someone puts gravy on steak?
I will not ask for it. Yeah. I don't know. I want my food to be like dry and not sloppy. I don't know. Are you a gravy person?
Gravies are good with mash and gravy.
Yeah, maybe it's all about context and maybe certain flavors of gravy are better than others. Anyway, this is making me hungry, which is good because we're about to talk about food. So all this graviness, all this cake. The question we ask on the show is that I want you to imagine that you are going to a spoken word dinner party, right? And often what happens at these things is that everyone is trying to bring like the main thing that's going to fill everyone up, the turkey, okay? But if you just have turkey all night, like it's overpowering, it's too much. Everyone's going to go home unsatisfied and sick of turkey. So if your work is a type of food, Aaron, what kind of food do you think it is? Is it gravy, maybe?
No, it's not gravy.
Okay.
I'm thinking like maybe ice cream or pavlova or something sweet and like dairy, only because I feel like if you have too much of my poetry, you're probably going to run away to the toilet.
Well, certainly for those lactose intolerance out
Yeah.
there kind of thing. So, okay, cool. So, yeah, sweet dessert with dairy, cheesecake, stuff like this.
Yeah. Ice
Yeah,
cream.
beautiful. Again, I'm just blown away by like the variety of things people have suggested. I'm pretty sure by now we have probably got like a proper like 3-course banquet. Everyone's bringing their best. And maybe a few more breakfast items. I don't know, or like I don't know, deviled eggs or something if people are into those. Anyway, we'll see what comes of it. If people want to find out like a little bit more about you, Aaron, or even see some of your work, I know that you've got a bit of an online presence. Where should they head to?
I've got Facebook. I've got Instagram. I've got TikTok. I think that's it. Otherwise, it gets too complicated and I can't keep track of the accounts.
Oh, yeah.
I have to like log in my password like 6 times, like because I always forget it.
Yeah. I'm scared of going on TikTok because like I feel like once I'm on there, I'll just never stop looking at it. Like,
It's a booby trap. It's a booby trap. Don't do it.
Oh, it's crazy.
6 hours will be going out of your day.
There you go. So you've got that online presence, which is good. And we'll have links to all of those pages in our description.
What about you? Do you have any pieces of poetry you want to share?
Whoa, this might be the first time someone has well and truly flipped the tables on me. Do I have something to share? Well, I was talking to my last guest about how I am going to be performing at the Victorian final of the Australian Poetry Slam very soon. In fact, that'll be over by the time this episode is out. I haven't decided like what pieces I'm going to share at this point. I might end up writing something original, but I actually don't know when or where it is yet. So once I know that, I'll have a good way to plan for that. I did start a piece the other day and I started it by looking at my water bottle, which has the word worthy printed on it. And I actually wrote a piece around that word, which I think I might bring it out at some point. It needs a little bit of a refining. Oftentimes I find it like hard to finish my pieces, like finding that good note to end on can be difficult. Do you find that as well?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, the amount of times I'll edit something, and especially towards the end, like you don't want to end off key. That's the vibe you get with poetry, like unless you're deliberately intending to let go off key.
Yeah.
Like it can really affect the ambience of the poetry.
Yeah, and so often like my beginning might be some kind of barn burner. Like, yes, straight into it, bring the people in. But I do find the ending difficult. So it's almost like I need a little bit of coaching about, maybe it's not about getting the perfect ending, maybe it's just about an ending. So for this piece that I'm writing about worthy, having an ending without it being too nitpicky or too perfect. I don't know. We're all recovering perfectionists around here, and we're all just trying things. So, look, I'm looking forward to, as much as I've like loved doing this show, I'm looking forward to having a little bit of a break in a few episodes' time, and I'm looking forward to how that might change things for me creatively. Like I've thrown a lot into the show, and just being able to take a bit of a break and refresh, I think will be good. Hopefully get some things down the page, but I don't really have anything to share today, Aaron, just because my voice is pretty cooked at the moment. So I feel like if I start getting super emotive, I'm going to be coughing up a lung within 5 minutes. Mate, this has been a pleasure. Let's hear your third and final piece.
So this piece is called The Petalous Rose, and it's about being someone's match, but not all their match. And you just got to find the right person to just accept your flaws as well as your pros. And I guess that's what this piece aims to try and do. I'm indelicately a rose. My thorns shred any touch. My bright red will eventually turn black. When my petals fall, I'll forever be in this form of a spell not broken. Stripped of spikes, I am something so gentle. But my petals plucked, I'm nothing special. A rose without beauty, love without promise of happily ever after. My thorns hurt considerably to hands that grab, fingers that poke. They'll bleed and shout of my harsh truth, barbs on my spine that make me a rose. That my petals have fallen one by one, they fly in forever with the wind, from loves me to they will love me never. No love for a petalous thorned rose, but if I were born again, I wouldn't change a thing. For the freedom my petals feel in the wind, for the safety of my heart not to be taken by the weak, for the love to only be shared with that sacred mind, to the bees that spend their time making the world a better place to be around.
Wow, amazing. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. That's not really the proper use of that line, but I'm throwing it in there because it's Shakespeare. Aaron Grahame, this has been a pleasure, mate. I really think you've got something really cool here with your work. And I just encourage you to continue to share it. Take every advantage of the live events or whatever you're doing online. And I'm just really intrigued and really excited to see where you take things in the next little bit. So thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Weetabix hands, what's that all about?